James Harden, Daryl Morey, the Philadelphia 76ers, white parties, and of course, Joel Embiid and one Tyrese Maxey make up today's conversation on the House of Take pod. I'm Dave DeBot. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. Okay, enough of the groveling. Let's dive into the content. To Daryl Morey we go.
If we do look at a trade, it's going to be for one of two things. If we don't get, either a very good player or something that we can turn into a very good player, then we're just not going to do it.
So clearly Daryl is sitting on what appears to be a James Harden major mistake, major miscalculation. Now, we all know that at this point, James Harden and, of course, the Philadelphia 76ers / Daryl Morey are in the midst of a standoff for some strange reason. And maybe one of you out there can answer this for me. But if James wanted to be traded, why did James even sign the contract that he signed to stay with the Philadelphia 76ers for this particular season? It, quite frankly, makes absolutely no sense. Now, James Harden could have been a unrestricted free agent and gone out and negotiated with any team in the National Basketball Association. Heck, if James Harden even wanted, he could have followed in the big footsteps of one Dwight Howard and gone to China and made a ton of money. Look, the money is the question in place here at this point. Now, allegedly, when James Harden took less money last season to play for the Philadelphia 76ers, there was a discussion about the Philadelphia 76ers actually signing James Harden to a max contract in the upcoming offseason, which, of course, is what has James Harden so mad. Now, do you believe that the Philadelphia 76ers and Daryl Morey would actually sign James Harden, a player who is, quite frankly, aging at this point, to a max contract? Look, it isn't 5 years ago, James Harden, when you turned down a huge deal from the Houston Rockets, which would have paid you, are you ready for it? $50 million a year, James Harden. You turned that deal down and then went on what can best be described as a journey to letting your body go. Now, as we know, he showed up in Brooklyn a little bit overweight. He forced the trade to Brooklyn in the first place. Once in Brooklyn, he decided to force his way out of Brooklyn by not actually playing any decent basketball. Once in Philadelphia, he played definitely a little bit better. He had some fantastic games in the playoffs, if we're being fair to James Harden. He also led the National Basketball Association in assists last year at 10.7. Not bad for a guy that I consider to be skiing down the backside of Career Mountain. So why would James Harden go ahead and sign the contract when he felt like he could actually get significantly more money on the open market? Hence the standoff that we have today between Daryl Morey and James Harden and the Philadelphia 76ers. I want to know what you think the Philadelphia 76ers should do at this point. Because at this point, the Philadelphia 76ers, quite frankly, hold all the cards. Sure, you could get the Brooklyn version of James Harden to actually play during a game in Philadelphia, but can you imagine the Philadelphia fans putting up with any of that? Look, as much as Daryl Morey wants to go out and get something for James Harden, it is going to be very difficult for that to happen. Now, as we inch closer to the start of the season, there could be an injury, there could be a major problem with one of the other teams in which a trade for James Harden will make a lot of sense. That being said, James Harden's decision to want to get some sort of long-term deal and then to go back to the media and Twitter and IG and basically say that the Philadelphia 76ers lied to him and didn't give him a max contract is not surprising. I'm sure there was a indication made by somebody inside the Philadelphia 76er organization that they would, if you will, take care of James Harden during this past offseason. But when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, why, James, would you then go ahead and sign that contract? Now, once the contract was signed, James insisted he wanted to be traded. Yeah, that was public knowledge before the ink was even dry. Then a couple weeks pass. James shows up at a white party in the Hamptons, I think, hanging out with lots of superstars, including Joel Embiid. Everything seemed to be great. Coming out of that, there were some words, some thoughts that the 76ers at that particular event convinced James Harden to stay with the Philadelphia 76ers for the upcoming season. Well, James might not have a chance or a choice to make a decision on his own behalf because the Philadelphia 76ers and Daryl Morey hold all the cards. What would you do if you were Daryl Morey of the Philadelphia 76ers? You also have to remember that if you're Daryl Morey of the Philadelphia 76ers, you still haven't really won a championship yet, have you? Look, the Philadelphia 76ers would be best to somehow convince James Harden to put forth his best effort playing for the Philadelphia 76ers next year. At least start the season, unless, as I mentioned, there is some sort of major injury on another team, which makes a trade worthwhile for the Philadelphia 76ers. Hence, the standoff has begun. And we are sitting here at the end of July, and I predict that this standoff is nowhere near from being over. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to the House of Takes pod. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, please go ahead and subscribe. We are about 2.5 months in, well over 800 subscribers. I want to thank everybody for that. For the House of Takes pod, I am Dave Jabal, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.